Welcome to Dialogue. This conversation is part of our continuing series on Trust the Experts, and today we are plunging headfirst into one of the most complex, lucrative, and often confusing landscapes of modern life.
Yeah.
The spiritual leader. I mean, let's just start with a moment of reflection here, because if we had a cold open for this deep dive, it would have to be this. Spirituality promised liberation. Spiritual leaders promised guidance. Instagram delivered courses.
That just perfectly captures the modern dilemma, doesn't it? We're sitting at this fascinating and frankly bizarre cultural intersection. You have this ancient human drive for meaning meeting the modern machine of monetization.
The content creation machine.
Right. Our scope today has to be really precise. We are not here to attack the genuine search for truth. That's a noble, necessary endeavor that every serious person undertakes at some point.
It's essential.
It is. Instead, we're examining the mechanisms of that search. And specifically, how that profound yearning for transformation has, in this new content economy, morphed into a commercial strategy.
One that often leaves people misdirected.
Misdirected, delayed, confused, or, as the sources so pointedly put it, merely gently sold candles about it.
That distinction is so vital. We're looking at the structure, the rhetoric, the economics of this whole ecosystem. And when we say spiritual leaders, we're casting a really wide net here.
We have to.
We mean the gurus, the healers, the channelers, the ascension coaches, the consciousness influencers, and I can't resist this, those who treat the word quantum like it's just seasoning you can sprinkle on anything to make it sound smart.
It's the rhetorical equivalent of adding glitter to a spreadsheet. You know it's scientifically irrelevant, but it catches the light, and for a moment you forget the substance isn't there.
Exactly. So the mission of this deep dive is, I think, incredibly serious. For you, the listener, trying to navigate this chaotic space, we need to pull out the critical distinctions.
The practical ones.
What separates authentic spiritual guidance, which is almost always difficult and demanding, from this abundant, easily monetized, modern spiritual theater? That distinction is everything for anyone trying to build a life of genuine integrity.
And to really get the content, we have to start with the context. The rise of this new clergy, it's not an accident. It's a direct product of systemic failure. So, okay, let's unpack it.
Absolutely. It's crucial to start there. When you look at this immense surge in the spiritual market, I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry now, you might think it's just because people are suddenly becoming wiser.
Which is a nice thought.
It's a nice thought, and maybe some of it is that. But the primary driver isn't just wisdom, it's pain. The whole surge is a response to these deep, painful shifts in modern life.
The spiritual marketplace has bloomed directly out of a significant vacuum of meaning. Our source material points to three main societal failures that created this incredibly fertile ground for the new clergy to flourish.
Right, what's the first one?
The first is the loss of institutional credibility. Just think about the last 2 decades. Traditional institutions, we're talking religious organizations, governments, the media, even financial systems, they've all experienced these massive trust collapses.
No, globally, it's not just one country.
It's everywhere. Scandal after scandal, financial crises, political gridlock. People just stopped trusting the traditional gatekeepers who were supposed to provide safety and, moral consistency.
So when the priest, the politician, and the banker all disappoint you, where do you go?
Exactly. You turn inward, or you turn to the nearest, most charismatic voice on social media claiming they've figured it all out. That sense of betrayal leaves people raw and searching for a new authority.
And that search for authority connects to the second failure, right? The actual lived experience of people.
It connects directly. The second failure is the exponential increase in suffering and anxiety. We're living in this world of constant digital pressure, information overload, and our community structures are declining.
Isolation is rampant.
Rampant. People are dealing with chronic, low-grade anxiety just trying to keep up. This pressure to perform, to optimize, to brand yourself, it's exhausting. And when you're in that much pain, you are so much more vulnerable to a quick-fix solution.
You're desperate for relief, and someone comes along promising it in a weekend workshop.
For 3 easy payments.
Of course. And the third failure, I think this is the one that really resonates. It's the collapse of the traditional sources of meaning.
This is the big one. For generations, your identity, your purpose, it was often handed to you by your community, a national story, or the idea of a stable, lifelong career.
All of that has basically evaporated.
It's gone. The why am I here?
Yeah.
Question used to be answered by the collective. Now it's an individualized crisis of purpose for millions of people.
And so Into that gaping existential vacuum steps the modern spiritual leader.
And they occupy the exact same function that the clergy once held, interpreting chaos, offering
Mhm.
solace, guiding you. But they do it with new language and
Better lighting.
much better lighting
Yeah.
and better branding, a direct-to-consumer model. They've completely democratized the pulpit, for better or worse.
So, for the person out there trying to find their way and the old maps have all failed them, this new clergy offers this incredibly potent, personalized promise.
It's a promise of certainty. I have this secret map the old world denied you. You don't need an institution. You just need my course. And that appeal is almost irresistible.
It is, but the warning embedded in all this is that the map they're often selling is less of a guide to liberation and more of a shortcut to intellectual comfort.
And that particular shortcut often leads straight into the most damaging philosophical trap of all.
Okay, let's unpack this core misdirection. Because if the vacuum created the market, this concept is the primary bait. The central idea that just saturates the modern spiritual industrial complex is that reality will comply if you think positively enough.
Right. It all hinges on these inescapable concepts, the law of attraction and the mirror principle, the idea that life perfectly reflects your inner state.
And to be fair, there's a kernel of truth in there, isn't there?
There is, and we have to acknowledge that. Your inner state, your beliefs, your emotional stability, it absolutely shapes how you engage with the world. It influences your outcomes. A calm person navigates a crisis differently than a paranoid one.
Of course.
But to take that partial truth and then rely on it entirely, to reduce the entire universe to a mechanism that just responds to your vibration, that's where the misdirection begins. It's spiritual reductionism.
And the philosophical problem with that is immediate and, frankly, catastrophic. We have to use the logical argument from the source material here because it just dismantles this worldview.
It really does.
If you accept the premise that reality is only a mirror of your inner state, what does that imply about the greatest self-realized figures in history, people who reach the highest levels of consciousness but still faced immense suffering?
It forces a conclusion that is just absurd. It negates the entire history of spiritual teaching. If reality is just a vending machine that responds to your thoughts,
Then you have to conclude that Jesus somehow attracted the crucifixion through a low vibe.
or that the Buddha must have attracted the sight of disease, aging, and death, the very suffering that launched his entire path to liberation, it makes no sense.
And if you take that logic further, every single master, every saint who faced persecution or poverty despite their realization, by this modern logic, they're all responsible for attracting their own hardship.
It's a total failure of critical thinking. The traditional masters never taught that reality was a puppet. Their teachings were about how to respond to reality as it is, not how to control it. They emphasized ethics, responsibility, compassion.
And the modern equivalent is just vibe harder. This philosophical reductionism, this reliance on an easy map, it's often pushed by people who, frankly, aren't qualified to be teaching in the first place.
Then that's the next major issue. We have to talk about the unqualified teacher problem. It's a common, dangerous pitfall where leaders mistake powerful, temporary experiences for final, permanent realization.
Okay, so we need to get specific with the language here. What's the key distinction?
The distinction is between states and traits. A person can have a profound, even reality-shattering experience of bliss or non-duality, a state. But like the weather, states change.
They come and go.
Exactly. So we have to be crystal clear. Insight is not the same as integration. Awakening is not the same as embodiment. And knowledge is absolutely not the same as wisdom.
A flash of insight is great. It shows you the direction.
But if you haven't done the painstaking, humbling work of integrating that into your daily conduct, your emotional stability, your moral character, you're just holding on to a memory of potential. You aren't living the wisdom.
They might have seen the destination on a map, but they haven't actually walked the terrain.
That analogy of walking the terrain is perfect because we have to challenge this idea that enlightenment is a binary switch. You're either on or off, awake or asleep.
It's not like that.
Not at all. Spiritual development is a continuum. There are glimpses, periods of stability, regressions, and finally integration over a long, long time.
And this is where the half-ripened teacher comes in.
The half-ripened teacher is everywhere. These are often sincere people who have had a genuine, impactful experience. They felt a profound call to lead. But they are early-stage awakeners teaching end-stage conclusions.
They had one beautiful, liberating moment and assumed the journey was over.
And immediately started teaching the final lesson before they learned the intermediate ones, before they integrated the humility that comes with real depth.
This is where the comedy and the tragedy meet, isn't it? Historically, a master spent decades, often in solitude, refining their realization through brutal self-examination.
Decades under intense supervision.
And the modern equivalent, as the sources pointed out, sometimes spends 3 months and a Canva template before launching a course on ultimate freedom.
The timeline is inverted. It used to take years to qualify to teach a basic meditation technique. Now it could take a single intense weekend before someone claims to be teaching ascension mechanics.
And what's the consequence of that for the student, for the follower?
It creates enormous confusion when their reality inevitably fails to match the teacher's premature promises. It also fosters arrogance. The follower gets this fragile certainty, an intellectual grasp of profound concepts without the emotional and moral humility that comes from truly earning them.
And that fragility often masks itself as aggression.
Aggressive certainty and an inflated sense of spiritual superiority. It's a defense mechanism.
So, if premature teaching creates fragility, what's the most severe risk? What happens when a leader gets a true glimpse of insight, but has absolutely no moral or ethical grounding?
That's where it gets truly dangerous. This is what the source material defines as awareness without ethics is intelligence with no brakes.
Intelligence with no brakes.
These individuals are incredibly powerful because they operate in a dual reality. On one hand, they can speak beautifully, they can quote ancient texts, they can describe non-duality in a way that is profoundly convincing. They have real charisma.
But on the other hand,
Because they skip the foundational work of humility and moral restraint, their unexamined ego is amplified by that very power. They can use their advanced knowledge to exploit followers financially, to manipulate people sexually, to avoid all accountability.
and they rationalize it.
They rationalize it by claiming, chillingly, that they are operating beyond the dualistic moral code.
It's the ultimate intellectual shield. I can't be doing harm. I've transcended morality. They use the highest philosophy to justify the lowest behavior.
That's it, exactly. They have the awareness to see the interconnectedness of things, but they lack the ethical structure to guide that power responsibly. The spiritual energy they tapped into just amplifies their unexamined selfishness. And that's the key. You can't skip moral development.
You can't. So we spent a lot of time deconstructing the shortcut. It's vital now that we shift back to the core requirements of these historical traditions. If the modern narrative is vibe harder, what did the original teachers actually demand?
The non-negotiable takeaway here is that every single master, East or West, laid out a path. They used different languages, different metaphors, but the core demand was always the same. Disciplined living, self-restraint, and ethical transformation.
The path was never a secret. It was just hard.
It was just intensely, relentlessly demanding. And let's get concrete with some examples because they offer such a perfect contrast to the modern model. First, think about the Tao. It's often misunderstood today as just going with the flow. But the real Tao emphasizes right living and alignment with the natural order. That effortless flow, Wu Wei, is achieved not through positive thinking, but through rigorous self-restraint and harmony.
So the effortlessness is the result of the discipline, not the starting point.
It's the end result of decades of alignment. Second, look at the Eightfold Path in Buddhism. It's so practical. The first stages are right view and right intention, but they immediately move into right speech, right action, and right livelihood.
The ethics come first.
The ethics are foundational. You have to stabilize your conduct and your character before you can stabilize your insight. It's non-negotiable.
And in the West?
In Western mysticism, you have the straight and narrow way. This tradition explicitly demands humility, compassion, ego denial, the whole idea of dying to self. It's about choosing the difficult route over the comfortable one, inward rigor over external comfort.
Even something as basic as the Ten Commandments, if you strip away the theology and just look at it as a blueprint for living.
It's all about discipline, respect for others, restraint against desire, honesty. They are all external markers of an internal order, and the universal demand across all these paths is this. None of them promise ease. None promise shortcuts. They promise transformation only if walked.
And that understanding completely reframes this modern obsession with raising your vibration.
It does, because the modern marketing treats it like a mechanical action. Buy this sound bath, consume this substance, do this ritual, and poof, your frequency rises.
It's a quick charge for the soul.
Exactly. But true ascension, true high frequency, it's not a performance. It's an organic byproduct that emerges from disciplined living. When you align your life with ethics, when you stabilize your mind through stillness, your frequency naturally
It's
rises.
a result of the work, not the goal itself.
The true sources of a higher frequency are profoundly unmarketable things. Ethical living, sustained stillness, self-observation, restraint, compassion, humility. These are the slow, difficult practices that actually work.
We have to use the analogy here because it's just so perfect. Trying to raise your vibration without walking the path is exactly like trying to get strong by buying tons of protein powder.
And never lifting a single weight.
Never. You can get the clothes, the shaker bottle, you can talk the talk, but you have zero actual muscle because you avoided the painful work of the lift.
It's an aesthetic performance of strength without the underlying structure. And that is the absolute difference between spiritual theater and a genuine spiritual life.
So if the half-ripened teacher is selling a shortcut, they have to package it in something appealing, right? And that's where the focus on these outer practices comes from.
It has to be visible, aesthetically pleasing, and easy to market.
It has to look good on camera.
Exactly. And we need to be clear. These outer practices aren't inherently evil. Meditation is good. Rituals can be meaningful. But they become a problem when they replace the inner work.
So what are we talking about here?
We see this immense focus on things like crystals, specific rituals, affirmations used as a kind of magical thinking. There's a huge emphasis on identity and aesthetics.
Right.
It also extends to experiential feats. Sexual liberation positioned as awakening, extreme physical performance like yoga mastery or intense breathwork, and a heavy, heavy reliance on plant medicine or ceremonies as the source of awakening.
The danger isn't the experience itself, it's confusing the temporary state with a permanent transformation.
That's the trap. None of these experiences are enlightenment. They can give you a valuable taste of what's possible, but they don't guarantee stability or ethical character. The masters warned about this constantly. Experiences are fleeting.
So when the outer, the visible, the consumable replaces the inner work of silence, self-honesty, and restraint.
Spirituality devolves into theater, because those inner practices are fundamentally boring to watch on a stream. They're impossible to sell in a quick course. They require immense personal discipline, not a credit card.
So with all this complexity, how does a sincere person find a simple, immediate test for a leader's authenticity? Is there a red flag?
There is one rule that is nearly universal across history, and it's a massive red flag today. Masters rarely, if ever, announce their own enlightenment.
Their realization was just evident in how they lived.
In how they lived, how they served, and what they didn't claim. The modern contrast is unavoidable. Modern leaders announce it constantly.
Either directly, I am a fully realized master, or implicitly through titles like Ascended Coach and polished photos.
And that need to market the identity of enlightened is, in itself, the tell. It's the core insight. If someone needs their followers to know they are enlightened, it is a sign that they fundamentally aren't.
Why?
Because true realization is profoundly humbling. It minimizes the identity, it doesn't inflate it. The person who is genuinely awake doesn't need external validation or a big following to affirm that fact. The need for followers is an ego-driven dynamic, the very thing spiritual work is meant to dismantle.
The moment you need the title, you've already lost the point.
You've lost the entire point.
Let's pivot back to the listener. The well-meaning person who is smart, curious, and sincerely trying to improve their life. How do they, despite all their best intentions, get pulled into this spiritual theater?
We have to acknowledge the deep psychological needs here. People are navigating chaos, and they desire reassurance, identity, belonging, and maybe most powerfully, certainty. That desire for certainty is the soft spot the half-ripened teacher exploits.
They sell certainty.
They sell narratives that feel good but ask little. They offer neat, closed-loop explanations for everything. It was your past life, it was your frequency, it was a pattern you can clear with my technique, and they promise easy entry into a new, elevated identity.
It's an intellectual comfort blanket.
It is. It's a transaction of comfort for cash or allegiance. And we have to contrast this again with the genuine path. True spiritual paths are the exact opposite. They ask everything of you. Discipline, uncomfortable change, and the willingness to live honestly with uncertainty.
The seeker wants reassurance, but the real path demands humility.
And the willingness to stand in the fire of not knowing.
So the ultimate promise of all real spiritual work is the return of authority inward, right? Self-reliance, self-mastery.
That is the goal. But the paradox of modern spiritual leadership is that it so often undermines that very promise. Instead of fostering self-reliance, many leaders just replace the old hierarchy with a new one.
How so?
You might reject the Catholic priest, But you replace him with the guru telling you which meditations to practice. You replace dependence on ancient dogma with dependence on the influencer's proprietary branded set of rules.
The dependent structure looks different. Maybe it's a digital course instead of a church, but the dynamic is the same.
It's the same destructive power imbalance. You're still looking outside of yourself for the answer, for the person to tell you what to do. And this perpetual outsourcing of your inner authority means you remain an eternal seeker, always needing the next course, the next teacher.
You trade one set of robes for another, but you're still dependent.
And you're perpetually delayed from realizing your own innate power.
Okay, so if the market is saturated with this, we need a positive North Star. What does true spiritual leadership actually look like?
An authentic guide's primary action is defined by a deep lack of self-interest in being followed. They aren't trying to build an empire, they're trying to dismantle dependency.
So what do they do?
First, they consistently point you inward. Their entire teaching is designed to make themselves obsolete in your life as quickly as possible.
Second, they actively discourage dependence. They will not be your savior. If a teacher makes you feel you can't succeed without them or their system, that is a terminal red flag.
Third, they emphasize ethical living and character above all else. They know that without a stable, humble, moral foundation, any spiritual experience is just a fleeting high waiting to crash.
They know that wisdom without morality is dangerous.
It's just intelligence with no brakes. Fourth, they actively warn against shortcuts and the high-vibe consumption mentality. They're the voice telling you the work is hard and slow, because that's the truth.
And most critically,
They instruct you to verify for yourself. They encourage critical thought. They want you to test ideas against your own lived reality rather than demanding blind belief. They trust your inner authority more than you do.
their entire approach is anti-marketing.
A true guide doesn't inflate their identity, sell guaranteed salvation, or claim exclusivity. A true teacher is trying to give you a flashlight, a map, and a compass, but they insist that you must walk the journey yourself.
So to bring this full circle for everyone listening, the failure we're seeing isn't the failure of spirituality itself. The genuine ancient path is still there, still functional.
It's the theatrical shortcut version, the one that promised comfort and speed, that failed the sincere seeker. The real path has never changed. It was never hidden, never trendy, never fast.
It was, and it remains.
Quiet, demanding, ethical, and humbling. It's a path of slow structural transformation.
I think the final reflective thought from our sources just sums this all up perfectly. The masters didn't raise vibration by talking about it. They raised it by how they lived.
That is the ultimate test. We have to stop prioritizing a teacher's eloquence or their aesthetics and start prioritizing their character and what their teaching actually demands of you. So we want to leave you with 3 critical questions to apply to any teacher or teaching you encounter.
What are they?
1. Does this point me inward or constantly outward to the teacher?
2. Does this demand integrity and humility, or does it rationalize my egoic comfort?
And 3. Does this reduce my dependence or does it create a new form of reliance?
Real spirituality doesn't need followers. It needs walkers. It needs people willing to do the difficult, unmarketable work of self-transformation.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Also, let us know in the comments what really stood out to you in this conversation and if there's any related topic or new topic that you would like covered in a future video.